Welcome back to Digital Trends Live, broadcasting live every weekday, keeping you up to date on tech headlines, news, interviews, and discussions around technology. And we're going to have something about that covers kind of all of those at once right now, and talking about artificial intelligence and how it affects how we view content, how we consume content. There's so much that goes into that. We have an expert joining us to discuss that right now. We have Ryan Steelberg, the president and CEO of Veritone, or president of Veritone. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. You know, I really love these kinds of discussions about how artificial intelligence is being utilized. To give everybody just a little bit of a backstory, can we talk just briefly about what Veritone is and does, and then we'll go into talking about AI and how it affects content.
So we're an AI platform. We primarily work with media and entertainment companies such as Disney, CNBC, and others, where our primary job is to work with them to ingest all of their audio and video as they're producing it or what they've already produced in like an archive. And then we use machines, bots, and algorithms to sift through and index that content. Think of like a legacy website before HTML exploded and you had a bunch of large JPEGs as the only thing available on a website that you can kind of understand. Over the years, now we can obviously type in a simple Google search and we can get to exactly the type of content we're looking for. We've done the same thing with audio and video at scale. So you can extract in near real time what faces are on the screen, what they're talking about, what's the sentiment of the conversation, and the like. All of those have afforded us an interesting ability to now sort of revolutionize, workflows, packaging of playlists for consumers. And it really starts with scalable metadata.
So talking about it from which is incredible, number one, that you're able to extrapolate that much data. I mean, that's so much at our fingertips now that didn't used to be there. How has that changed from a consumer standpoint? Can we give it maybe an example of how that's changed?
So I think the easiest way to understand is YouTube has been doing this relatively effectively for years, is personalized videos. What's the recommendation of the very next video? As you know, if you're trying to keep that customer engaged, whether it's a 45-year-old male or it's a 12-year-old you need to know exactly what type of video to serve them next. They use the metadata as part of that decision-making process using these AI-based models to make predictions of exactly what type of content you're interested in. Recommendations, Netflix does. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Oh, yep, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. I had somebody interrupt. But Netflix is another example, making recommendations of what potential shows might you be interested in. They look at that for a consumer. They look at you and try to get attributes about you as the individual, but also what type of content you're looking at. Are you predisposed to comedy? Even dark scenes in a movie? Is there an abandonment rate where consumers are no longer engaging in that content? They take all of this input, this first-party data, coupled with the metadata about the content, to deliver you a very personalized experience.
And this is something that different platforms are utilizing. So you mentioned Disney, that you're working with all kinds of different content creators and platforms. So it's taking that first party data. So it's actually paying attention to what you're watching, when you're leaving something, what you're predisposed to, and then guessing, okay, well, based on that, you're going to like this show next.
Yes, for the most part. I mean, and as we're consuming more data, and we're accessing it through different platforms, your viewing habits and your consumption habits may change based upon time of day, based upon what type of device you're using, a mobile versus a desktop versus a connected TV. So again, the goal ultimately is delivering the right content packaged in the right way to the right individual at the right time.
Speaking about, we're talking about a lot about the video side of it, but also in particular the audio side that you brought up. Can you speak to that just a little bit about how podcasts have changed, why they're such a big thing right now, and then how AI can help us curate that content as well?
Yep. Audio is obviously having a renaissance right now. Podcasting has been around for a long time. I think it's just the culmination of the ubiquitousness of smartphones. Everybody can now be a producer, whether they should be or not. Everybody is producing podcasts these days. It reminds me again so much of the early web, when it was with very few companies. They were basically building brochures, digital brochures for websites in the past. And then websites exploded, and with Wix and other groups and web.com that would allow you to build simple websites fast. Podcast is like that right now. There's literally each year now over 1 million podcasts are being produced. all of that audio is unstructured, meaning it's hard to understand what that content's about. So AI in the combination with that is a great solution to sift through all that tonnage, those millions of different discrete podcasts, not only to get like what the show name is about and how long it is, but actually what are they talking about inside the programming. So think of now bringing a Google search-like index to podcasting, which is really going to make it easier for consumers to find exactly the type of audio-based content they're looking for.
That's incredible because, like you said, a million podcasts that are out there. That is a lot of audio to sift through. Where would this be implemented and utilized? Are we talking about platforms like Spotify or something more of a Google search style search for it? Like, how would that work?
The space is kind of the Wild West right now, where it's kind of figuring itself out. You can now go ingest podcast from, frankly, hundreds of different locations today. So, for example, we recently announced a deal with one of the larger hosting companies of podcasts called Art19, and they have thousands and thousands of podcasters that use their platform to host them. That's where you integrate. So it's the area of the touch point when the consumer is asking for that stream of that podcast or that download. You have to have the intelligence at that hosting level, at that server level, so you can extract this intelligence. And that's what you'll start to see over time. Yes, absolutely. One of the, and I think Google and others will provide a much easier, more ubiquitous search index for these podcasts, regardless of where they're hosted.
What are some of the key issues that content distributors and platforms, that we go to for podcasts or any kind of really content? What are some of the key issues they're having in reaching and finding new audiences?
The guides are becoming challenging right now. So, consumers, because there's such a, reminds me a little bit of the early days, again, of the Comptitor days in AOL. We have a bunch of powerful walled garden groups that are all obviously trying to fight against each other to harness and keep, candidly, they want 100% of your viewing time or your listening time. Whether, again, that's a Netflix or now Disney Plus is coming out and there's iTunes and now Google Podcast. At the end of the day, us consumers, do we really have that big of a preference of where this stuff is hosted? Again, our, kind of the ubiquity of the web and our mobile devices now is saying, it's really about what type of content I'm interested in. I don't really care where it's hosted. So I think there is a little bit of competition between the major brokers in the major platforms out there that are making it a little bit burdensome for us consumers to really access this content in a readable and efficient manner. But again, like all things, consumers are powerful and equilibrium will be brought into it and hopefully make a better consumer experience.
It's fascinating to see where it's going to go and just the utilization of artificial intelligence, AI and these algorithms and all of this metadata that we can gather to change the way that we watch content and also make it better in the same way. Any ideas or anything you want to prognosticate about for the next 5 years of how you think content's going to change?
I think right now we are still in a very somewhat segmented content environment, meaning we have a 4.5 minute discrete YouTube video and we have a 30-minute. I think we're going to get to a point where it's going to know my driving habits to work. It knows I have a 22-minute commute. What type of programming can be packaged and delivered to Ryan Steelberg in that 22 minutes? It may not be a full 30-minute podcast or 60-minute podcast, or if I'm in a driverless car, it may not be a full show. So how do I package content to deliver it to you with the exact preferences and timing that you need? I think that's going to be an interesting trend. Also, I think the ongoing trend is the sheer expanded explosion of type of content is forever going to increase. And then third is, because so much of this content is being produced and indexed with AI, we're going to start to see AI-built shows. I'm not talking about, fictitious characters and scripts being made, but real-time compilations of different types of content that are completely prepared through using AI and delivered to Ryan Steelberg. And I see that definitely happening within 5 years.
Almost like an NFL red zone kind of thing where you're just getting the highlights of what you want. Wow.
But the difference is that NFL Red Zone is done by a bunch of humans with a very limited amount of content. You're now going to be able to look at a corpus of content of millions of videos and audio files.
It's a fascinating discussion and really interesting to see where it's going to go. And I really thank you so much for joining us here to talk about this too. Ryan, for people who want to know more about Veritone, where can they go?
Sure, go to veritone.com. That's just veritone.com. And it's mostly geared towards B2B, but you'll get some good insight about the company and what we're doing with some major consumer-based organizations today.
Really interesting stuff. Ryan, thanks so much for being a part of Digital Trends Live today.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.